I grew up mostly in North County, San Diego. I say mostly because, I went to 8 different schools in 12 years. Like I was in 8 different school districts just because my parents were just nuts, and like we'd be sleeping, at one family member's house in Montana for a few months, and then we'd jump on the Greyhound back to California. Oh, shit hit the fan in California. All right, we're flying to Hawaii to live with my mom's other sister. And I hated it at the time. Like my dream was to live in one home in one town. My name's Michael S. Millin. You can call me Mike. My dad, he was actually a really successful businessman, but then when he would drink, he would self-destruct and lose everything and then start that cycle again. I've seen him go through that cycle probably 3 times. He was an uncomfortable person to be around even when he was sober, but when he was drinking, he would become a different person. I was always going with my mom whenever my dad would hit a bottom and disappear. It was hard for her to support me. Like, we were on welfare. Like I remember I would, this was when food stamps were printed. So I used to get the OG food stamps and I'd go buy Snicker bars with them and stuff. I didn't know any different, but it was really an unsettling childhood. My dad ended up getting sober when I was around 9 years old. That's when we started basing in Solana Beach in San Diego. I also started surfing during this time. This became something that really was like my lifeline in many ways, like when things were crazy at home. My mom also was dealing with addiction through pharmaceutical drugs, pill popping. So surfing was my way to stay out of the house, meet some good friends and build a community. As I was getting older and into my teenage years, my friends' parents were throwing parties and I'd see them drinking and stuff. And I didn't understand why my dad couldn't drink like normal people. So I was always like, how could he not control how much alcohol he drinks? I looked down on him for that, really. I was like, that seems really weak to me. The first time I got drunk, I was about 14 or 15 at a high school party, and I was challenging the seniors to drinking games. I drank so much that I blacked out and I fell face first on the pavement and knocked my front tooth out. And I just was like, wow, that didn't go too well, And I sort of just shook it off like it was bad luck. After that, I got super focused in my junior and senior year in high school with surfing and competing, started experiencing some success with that. Moving forward into my early 20s, living away from my parents and on my own, and I have roommates, and my drinking is starting to get out of control. Before I know it, I'm going on benders that last sometimes 3 days. Sometimes, one time I went on a bender that felt like it was 7 months straight, waking up in different towns, not really knowing how I got there, blackout drinking, bad things happening. By this point, I had people saying Mike, you're an alcoholic. And then I had one of my best friends, OD and die. We were on a very similar path. I actually ended up in the hospital for 2 days for mixing cocaine and Seroquel and having the doctor said I had a minor heart attack. So I was going south quick. I was completely lost. And at this point, my dad had relapsed. Seeing my dad, what he's like when he's drinking, it was like looking into the mirror. I had a buddy he was a year older than me in high school, really talented guy. I loved this guy and I looked up to him so much. But he also had a drug issue, a drug addiction, and I didn't see him for a few months. I don't know what happened to him, but then I ran into him at the beach one day, and he looked great, he looked bright, and I just said, hey, what where have you been? How you doing? And he told me that he was 90 days sober at the time, and he was going to AA meetings, and I just thought, wow, I mean, if that guy can stick with that, like he could have the world by the balls. You know, he's a really talented dude, and I just thought like, I want that. If I could even just have a piece of that, you know, I want it, because I was dying already at a young age, and he invited me to my first meeting, and I've been sober since that day. My views on like alcoholism and addiction have changed a bit. I heard someone call it a stress-induced brain disease, and that made sense to me. What I've learned is it's because I've never felt safe in the world. I didn't even know it, but I've been running on a low level of anxiety my whole life. So it's like, okay, what can I do now? Oh, I'll get hooked on nicotine for a while, or I'll drink coffee alcoholically, or put myself in just really unsafe, lonely, empty situations through sex, or it just comes out in so many different ways. It gives you just a moment of comfort, because I'm going through such deep pain and terror in my body, and I feel it in my cells, that I don't know what to do. And there's nothing you can do but just feel it and ride through that pain. The only other option is to numb with drugs and alcohol. And that's what I know my dad did, my mom, and they're at the end of their lives now. And they're, I mean, I say all these things, but at their core, they're great people, and I love them. And they never stopped loving me in the best way they could, you know, even though with all the shit we went through, like, and I'll never forget that. Like, I'll always love them. But they're at the end of their lives now, and it's like, it's just been their whole lifetime has been like in survival. You know, I'm just now getting to the point where I'm seeing some of my creativity come to life. About 3 years ago, I just started writing stories from my childhood, just because it was so wild. My girlfriend read the stories, and she said, like, this has to become a novel. Like, it has to. She just felt like it was really powerful to her, and we put this book together. The main thing is generational trauma, because there's a lot of stories about addiction out there, and it's usually about the person and like what they went through with their parents and how their parents were abusive and all this. But I wanted to show like what my parents went through with their parents, and like how the trauma was passed down to them and then passed down to me. And it's like this crazy cycle, right? So it's a heavy story, and like I feel like it's gonna rip people's hearts out at times. But then I really lean into like sobriety and all the adventures that I've been on since getting sober. Yeah, I talk about this in the book. I got on a plane in Los Angeles with $200 to my name, and I flew to Japan, and I had 10 surfboards with me, and I sold 8 surfboards in Tokyo. I made like $3,000 roughly, and that was like the start of my trip around the world. And it led to like being out of the country for 10 years. One of my hopes is that someone might see it and they're just in a spot in life where they're fucked and they're drinking too much or whatever, and they're like, well, maybe I can at least try to get sober and maybe things will shift for me, and just try it as an experiment. Because if, like for me, if I didn't do that, they say you end up in jails, institutions, or dead. I was on my way there. They always say your misery will be refunded. So, you know, you've got those options waiting for you if it doesn't work. But my hope is that someone just picks it up, and maybe that'll work for them. If maybe it could be food addiction or sex addiction or whatever, or maybe even not be addicted, but they're just stuck in a pattern, or they want to like experience adventure, move to a new country. My hope is that it just sparks some adventure as well in people, and just to go for it. In many ways, it feels like it's just the beginning. It's going to be exciting to see where like the vessel of this book takes me. with traveling and connecting with people. So stay tuned. I don't know. More's going to be revealed, right? So